This story is from my childhood friend Jamie, and it still unnerves me even to this day. What she saw genuinely freaked her out, and her family even backed up her claims, so here it goes. Jamie and her family moved into this rental property. Right away, it gave everyone an off feeling. Even those who visited or stayed over would mention it. Even I experienced this odd feeling myself, a dreadful foreboding whenever I went over there. There was no doubt, all of us agreed. The house was haunted. The walls felt oppressive, and the feeling of pitiful dread I can't even describe in words was extremely uncomfortable for me to experience. On this faithful afternoon, Jamie had arrived back at home from the park and heard an argument taking place in the kitchen between her mom and dad. She thought this was odd as both of her parents should be at work. As she unlocked the front door and went inside, she called out, "Mom?" The house felt instantly silent, an uncanny silence like all the air had been sucked out of the place and felt stifling and wrong. Then a soft voice from her mum came from the kitchen. "Hey Jamie, we're just in here." The kitchen door at this point was closed, but Jamie just froze in place. It was her mother's voice, but there was something off about it. The cadence was missing that made it her mother's voice. This just sounded flat and unnatural. Jamie bolted back out the front door and waited outside until her brother came home. But as she turned back to the house, she saw her mother peering at her from the lounge room window. Except it wasn't her mother. The face was the same, but it was devoid of anything that made it her mother. Its face resembled a mask, mimicking her mother's face. Its eyes looked lifeless and utterly blank, devoid of emotion, with an expressionless grin. Jamie screamed and ran down the street all the way to her mother's office. And as she walked in, she saw her mom was still there all this time and had never been home. Initially, her mother reasoned that someone must have broken in, but a later investigation found nothing had been stolen, and all the doors were locked. No one could rationalize who my friend saw in the window and why it looked so much like her mother. That was the deciding factor for them to immediately pack up and stay with relatives until they found a new house. Funny enough, the landlord of the house denied anything like this happening when they lived there, but later did admit previous tenants didn't stay long. The reason? Simply that there was something wrong with the house. Growing up, it wasn't uncommon for my sister and I to run into each other's bedrooms at night when we had a nightmare. At 9 years old, we firmly believed that we can outrun the demons by jumping into each other's beds. But this night was different. I'm asleep in my room, and my younger sister is asleep down the hall in her room. Suddenly, I'm jolted awake out of a deep sleep. The room is dark, with only the moon shining through my window, and at the far corner, I see my sister standing in the doorway. There's no question that it's her. Her height, her stupid haircut, her oversized New Kids on the Block t-shirt she stole from my mom, but she's just standing there, one hand on the doorknob, the other on the doorframe, both eyes staring right at me. Silence. I stare back at her for a minute before I get annoyed, throwing my blanket open and yelling, "Come on if you're coming in here." But she doesn't move, doesn't say anything. She's still staring. At this point, I'm not even creeped out, I'm just annoyed and cranky. So, like any big sister would do, I get up to go hit her. I jump out and stomp over to where she stood, stopping about arm's length in front of her. She's still silent, still staring right at me. Now I'm creeped out, asking, "What are you doing?" And as I swipe my hand to hit her forehead, she disappears instantly. Even before my hand falls back down, she didn't dissipate away gradually. She was gone in a split second. I look back at my bed. I look in the hallway. There was no sign of her. So now I run to her room as fast as I can. And when I get there, I notice she's there. But she's not sleeping. She's shaking violently. I soon realize she's having a full-blown seizure. I'm now fully awake. I run to my parents' room, turned on all the lights, and yell that she's having a seizure. We slept at the emergency room that night, and later I learned she had childhood epilepsy. Oddly enough, I didn't even know the word seizure when I yelled it out. I just somehow knew the word. To this day, I honestly think she astral projected, still finding a way to come to my room when she was in trouble. Old habits die hard, I guess. One of the scariest experiences I ever had was when I was driving down a dirt road at night a few summers ago. I had been behind the wheel for about 3 hours at this point and hardly had any sleep the 2 previous nights. In truth, the only thing that was keeping me awake was coffee and sheer determination not to get into a car accident. The side road I was taking was new to me, but according to the map, it was only 36 miles more than it would have been if I was going on the freeway. Not bad considering how long I'd been driving up to this point and that I still had another half hour to go. I was deep into farm country when I came across the first headlights I saw since turning off the main road. It was these annoyingly bright ones where, once installed, the driver will magically forget that low beams exist. As we got closer to each other, I tried to shield my eyes while also attempting to see the road in front of me. I swore at the driver of the truck when we passed each other, and it wasn't like he could have heard me either. However, the moment we passed each other, he whipped a U-turn so fast that there was no mistaking that he was coming for me. My car isn't going to win any races, so it didn't take long before he got right up my bumper, flashed his high beams. Amazingly, what I saw before was the low beams, and laid on the horn. Naturally, I was freaked out and my mind was running wild. The only thing that comforted me was the fact I had a loaded gun in the center console. I hoped I wouldn't have to use it, but this guy wouldn't leave me alone. I was tired, had a hard day, and my mind wasn't thinking right. Otherwise, I wouldn't have pulled over. The plan was that I was going to aim the gun at the driver, tell them off, and watch them drive off. However, before I could do any of that, the truck pulled up right next to me, rolled down the window, and said, "The lady in your truck is trying to flag down other drivers, man. Figured I would let you know. Professional courtesy, you know. Have a good day." He drove off without giving me time to respond, so I wasn't able to thank him. Not that night anyways. I was too busy burying her. My favorite doll as a child was called Percy. His porcelain skin was so smooth, laying under his fitted outfit. It was a gift from my Aunt Ginger for my 12th birthday. You see, Percy was always by my side, and we would often play king and queen. I was the queen, which meant listening to orders from the king. Usually, this involved bringing offerings such as bread and water. These small moments of fantasy kept me entertained as a child. The only problem was Percy would have an attitude when we played. He was so demanding at times and yelled very hurtful words. I got so tired of the name calling that I threw him into the trash, watching his slick, pearly white porcelain skin crack on impact. The next morning, I felt bad and missed my companion. I searched through the trash but couldn't find a single trace of Percy. I felt defeated and silently went back into my room. But sure enough, my best bud, Percy, was right there. I gladly patched him up as I apologized profusely. One afternoon, Aunt Ginger came over, and I heard a commotion between her and my parents. She demanded that the doll be returned to her. She wanted to take my Percy away. My parents argued, calling her a crazy, wretched witch. I could hear them telling Aunt Ginger that I had always been a disturbed child, but I had shown growth and change since getting Percy. Aunt Ginger yelled obscenities before slamming the front door. My mother then came into the room, comforting me. She told me I was a normal child and to listen to Percy. She would help me overcome any struggles. I didn't know what she meant at the time, but I soon would. Later that night, Percy woke me up. I could see the light shining in his eyes from the moonlight, illuminating him through the window. He nudged me to follow him. We silently crept into my parents' room. He had a kitchen knife tucked in his little pants. He slid me a note telling me to end my parents' lives for getting between us. Tears flowed down my face as I shook my head in disagreement. He told me he was the king and I must obey. So I gripped the knife tightly and began hacking, slashing, and massacring my parents. The mess was gruesome afterwards as I laid in their bed, which turned into a pool of blood. It's been 20 years since then. I sit all my days in a cold concrete cell, deprived of sunlight. They say I'm crazy and delusional, but they'll reduce my sentence if I admit my wrongdoing. But I obeyed my king that night. I did nothing wrong. I listened like I always do. I miss my Percy. I remember my first kiss with Sarah. We were 12, sitting under a big oak tree in the woods behind our neighborhood. The air smelled like pine, and the sky was streaked with orange as the sun set. My heart pounded as she leaned in, her lips soft and quick against mine. It was awkward in that moment. Then we found a hole. It was nestled in the tree's thick, gnarled roots, a perfect round opening in the earth. Too round, too deep, like something had burrowed right in there, something waiting. Sarah, always the brave one, grinned at me. "I bet I can fit," she said. I swallowed. "I don't know. It looks weird," I said. "Scaredy cat," she teased, and before I could stop her, she slid inside. I waited. A few seconds passed, then a minute. "Sarah?" My voice cracked. Then she crawled back out. Something was wrong. Her skin looked paler, like she hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. Her lips were dry and cracked. But the worst part was her eyes. They were still green, still Sarah's, but something about them wasn't right. "What were we doing?" she asked, brushing dirt off her arms. I frowned. "We kissed, remember?" She blinked. "Oh, yeah." But there was hesitation in her voice, like she didn't really remember at all. After that, things got strange. Sarah forgot things. First, small things, where she left her bike, what day it was. Then, bigger things. Sometimes she'd stop mid-sentence, looking lost. Other times she'd stare at me like I was a stranger. I told myself it was nothing, that she was just tired. But deep down, I knew something had changed the moment she crawled out of that hole. Still, I loved her. Years passed and we stayed together. We graduated, moved in together, built a life. But I never stopped thinking about that day. On our 10th anniversary, she suggested we go back. "It's where it all started," she said, smiling. I hesitated. The memory of that hole never left me, but she looked so happy, so I agreed. The tree was the same, untouched by time, and the hole was still there, like it had been waiting for us. Sarah turned to me, eyes bright. "Close your eyes," she whispered. "One more kiss, for old time's sake." I smiled and shut my eyes. Then she shoved me. I fell hard, crashing through the dirt. My hands hit something dry, brittle, bones. A skeleton laid curled at the bottom of the hole, its limbs twisted, the clothes torn and faded, but somehow familiar. Sarah's favorite shirt, the one she wore that day. I stumbled back, shaking my head. "No, that's not. You were with me. We grew up together. I heard my own voice. A figure peered down at me. It wasn't Sarah. It wasn't me. But it had my face. I heard Sarah laugh, her voice, but not hers. Then my own. Then the hole closed. Warm sleep, funny smell. I wake, girl gone. Lick paws, call out, funny smell, warm sleep. Food time, no food, no food, people gone. I call, I call, I call, I call. Leave bed, look around, girl gone, big hands man gone, flower smell woman gone, bad smell. I call, I walk, all gone, floor hole, leading down, I go, other end, angry light, strange voice. I look, big hands sitting, flower smell flat, girl kneeling, trapped all, red light, bright tongues dance, all around, air thick, blood shapes, floor marked, strange voice, strange man, bad smell, makes words, bad words, he calls, names things, bad men, bad names, he calls, blood shapes, red moves, girl cries, big hands cries, flower smell shouts, man calls, bad voice, bad names, ground moves, things beneath girl, beneath big hands, beneath flower smell, beneath me. Girl sees me, she calls, Pixie, run away! Run forwards, bite man, bite man, bite man. He kicks, fall away. legs still, won't move. I call. Man kicks. Stupid cat. You broke the circle. Things beneath. Bad smell. No, no, accept my sacrifice. Bad words. Thing beneath. Reaching up. Grabs man, shakes man, pulls down, down, down. Quiet now. Better smells. Ground still. Light dims. Quiet now. Tired now. Girl calls. Light dims. Girl calls. Light dims. Warm sleep. Girl calls. Close eyes. Safe now. Long sleep. I'm a medic and firefighter. We once had a call for something normal, like chest pain or something. I can't remember. The caller said he was in his barn, which isn't weird really around farm country. We pull up to the scene and immediately something just felt off. I have no idea why, but something just told me in my gut that this situation was very wrong. I decided to do a 360 around the building before we went in through the front door. And as I walk around, I come to a window on the side of the building and look in. There, carefully laid out and set, was a shotgun rigged to the front door. The man had set a booby trap for us, and behind the shotgun hung his dead body, hanging by a rope around his neck. We kicked in this plexiglass window on the side of the building and entered that way. The man was obviously dead. Nothing we could do about it at that point. I would have been the first one to open that front door, but for some reason, I just didn't want to walk through it that day. No idea why. Alright, those are the scary stories I have for this video. If you're not asleep by now, feel free to like and subscribe for more content like this. It gives me the strength to make more of these videos for you guys. Till the next video,